Good day, everyone. You are welcome to another Prestigious. Today we'll be considering MBA 833 quantitative methods for management. And the topic before us today is decision theory. Decision theory. The success or failure that an individual or organization experiences depends largely on the ability to make appropriate decisions. Ability to make appropriate decisions. That means as manager, you are going to make decisions in one way or the other. And mind you, not making a decision is also a decision. So we are faced with so many scenarios, so many situations, so many conditions. Yet we still need to make decisions. Because as managers, everything falls on your table. Decisions need to be made. And every time you make decision, there will be an outcome, a result, or consequences of these decisions. And the consequences may be what? The one that will attract reward, or the one that will attract punishment or sanctions, so to say. So before you make decisions, what are the things you need to consider? How do you go about it? That is what we are going to consider in this topic, decision theory. We have so many environments in which we make decisions. We have environments where we have certainty, decision making under certainty. Under this environment, you have 100% information before you make your decision. 100% information about the conditions, about the scenarios, about the consequences, about what you are trying to resolve. 100% information. So also there's another environment, which is what? Under risk. Environment where you have the risk. Under this environment, you have less than 100% information. That means there's also a probability involved. Probability of the outcome or of the risk. For instance, if you have 70% confidence that your decision will come out fine, then there's 30% risk involved. That means there's a probability you can attach. That means 70% or 30%. That is a probability. That is where we talk about what? The risk environment. Now, there's also an environment that we call what? Uncertainty. Uncertainty is that you don't have probability to attach to whatever decision you are going to make. Under risk, don't forget, you have to do less than 100% information, but you still have a probability of the outcome. The outcome may be what? 70%. It may turn out 70% to be true or 30% to be false. While under uncertainty, you cannot attach probability. No probability of what? Of occurrence. You do have probability to attach to what will come out from your decision. Then the fourth environment is the environment we call what? Decision making under ignorance. Ignorance is where information is available but you are not aware of the information. Probability is available but you are not aware of the probability. So you make decision based on what? Ignorance. Remember, as a manager, all these conditions, all these environments play out in day-to-day activities. How you are able to maneuver these four environments and still make your decision and get in what? The best of it. That's what makes a good manager. Under this topic, we are majorly going to focus more on the decision making under uncertainty. That is what this material is all about. Decision making under uncertainty, We are not going to consider this. It's only going to be on the definition. Why the main focus should be decision making under uncertainty. That is what this material is all about. Also, there are some key terms you need to note. One of them is what we call decision alternatives. These are what's called the course of action. They are also called the course of action. Your strategies, your arts, your actions, they are under your control. Don't forget, for instance, whether to resume to a business or to resume at work is either yes or no. It's under your profit. It's under your control. You can make the decision whether to be yes or to say no. That you have it. You have the strategies to deploy as a manager. What strategies do I want to deploy? What course of action do I want to take? They are under your control. These are the decisions under your control. Then we have what we call states of nature. These are the future conditions or their consequences, events, scenarios that are not under your control as a manager. For instance, the economic condition. The economic condition is not under your control as a manager. The weather is not under your control, for instance, as a manager. As a production manager, whether it's going to rain tomorrow or not, you don't know. It's not under your control. But what is under your control is to decide whether you are going to produce or not to meet the market demand tomorrow. But whether it's going to rain is not within your control. Meanwhile, as a manager, you still have to make decisions. Despite the fact that you don't know what tomorrow holds, you don't know what the scenario will be tomorrow, but you still have to make your decision. The third key term is what we call payoff, which is the numerical value, the outcome of your decision. The outcome of your decision and what? The state of nature. The outcome of what is within your power and the one that is not under your control. So, is the outcome a positive or a negative one? If the outcome is positive, kudos. If the outcome is negative, then that is sanction. I've made decisions to produce. I've made decisions under my profit to invest in stocks or in government bond. I'm not in control of the economy, whether there's inflation, whether there's what? Boom. It's not within my control. But I've made decisions which is under my control. But what is now the outcome? Do we have enough money? Was it a gain or not? If they turn out to be negative, that is what? The outcome, which is the combination of alternatives and states of nature. Combination of the first two terms up here. Decision, alternatives, state of nature. Like I said earlier, that this material is purely going to be based on decision making under uncertainty. Under this environment, we have 5 criteria that we are going to consider. The first one says optimism criterion. That means when it is also called maximax. You want to get the maximum of the maximum, or you want to get the minimum of the minimum. For instance, where we have 3 situations: good, better, and best. Optimism state says that you want to get the best of the best. Under these 3 scenarios, good, better, best, the maximum of it is what? To go for the best. You want to go for what? For the best. And if it is Minimin, you want to go for the minimum of the minimum. For instance, when we have a scenario, we have bad, worse, worse. These are the minimum level that someone can get into. You still want to take the minimum of the minimum. The minimum here, we have to be what? The bad situation, which is the minimum of the minimum. Having said that, the second course of action under this is what we call pessimism. When we are going for maximum of the minimum or minimum of the maximum. Pessimism criterion. You don't want to be too optimistic as we have in the first case. Here you want to be what? Pessimistic. You want to go for the maximum of the minimum. Why you want to also, or you want to go for the minimum of the maximum. The third scenario, where we have equal probability or Laplace criterion. Here you are saying you don't want to be too optimistic, which is the case number one. You don't want to be too pessimistic, likewise. But you want to stay within the two. Equal probability. 50% being optimistic, 50% being pessimistic. You want to take the equal probability of that. That is what you want to start in between. The fourth one, which is what we call regress salvage criterion. Here you are taking a decision whether to invest. You are taking a decision whether to produce. You are taking a decision whether to go or not to go, whether to continue or to discontinue. Now the outcome of the decision, you have seen the outcome. The outcome, maybe it has resulted in a loss. For instance, at this point you are regretting. You invested in a business that brought a profit of 300,000 naira, for instance. Meanwhile, there is also a decision alternative that if you have invested in that alternative, you will have gained a profit of what, 700,000. What is your regret? Your regret now is the difference between the profit you should have made and the profits you made, which is what, 400,000 in this case. That is your regret. Now, in this regret, if you have a series of regrets, you want to go for the what? The minimum of them all. The fifth condition is what we call coefficient of optimism, propounded by Hurwicz, or they call it Hurwicz criterion. Coefficient of optimism. We have coefficient of optimism. You can also have coefficient of what we call pessimism. It depends on what the question says. If the question gives coefficient of optimism, then you find coefficient of what? Pessimism. If the question gives coefficient of pessimism, you look for coefficient of what? Optimism. The coefficient of optimism is denoted by what we call alpha, while the coefficient of pessimism is 1 minus alpha, which is the same thing as what? Beta. It depends on what you are given, as said, whether it's coefficient of pessimism or optimism. Now, having discussed this theory, having discussed the environment, the key terms we need, having discussed why we need to make decisions, having discussed the 5 scenarios or 5 criteria in which you can make decisions under uncertainty. Don't forget, uncertainty is when you do a probability of occurrence. While risk is when you can attach probability to the occurrence, 70% that it will come out true. Then that means 30% that it will not come out true. But under uncertainty, you do have probability attached to this outcome. And I said this is the focus of this material. At this juncture, let us proceed to look at the examples. How can we make decisions under each of these criteria? Example 1. A food products company is contemplating the introduction of a revolutionary new product with new packaging, or replacing the existing product at much higher price. At much what? Higher price. X1. It may even make a moderate change in the composition of the existing product with a new packaging at a small increase in price. Small increase in price denoted by X2. Or make a small change in the composition of the existing product, backing it with the word new and a negligible increase in price. Now, if you look at this now, the company is contemplating the need to make decisions. Like normal manager, like every rational manager, you contemplate first. You dissect first. What do I need to do? You think this may take series of time. It may be for a period. Then what do I need to do before I make decision? Knowing well that your decision has what a consequence. Knowing also that there are some things that you cannot control, yet you still need to make your decision. X1, which is what? First decision alternative. That means to charge what? A much higher price. Then another decision alternative is what? To have a small increase in price. Why the third one is talking about what? To have a negligible increase in price. Don't forget the terms. The key terms, again, there are three. The first one is talking about what? Decision alternatives, which is what we have seen. The three X1, X2, X3. Don't forget the second thing we need is what? Our state of nature. Now, what are the states of nature here? We have the three possible states of nature or events are high increase in sales, N1, no change in sales, N2, and the third one says decrease in sales. Don't forget, state of nature are the things you do have control over. You have control over whether to increase your price to much higher price, or to have a small increase, or just a negligible. These are within your control. But whether it will not resolve or result in high increase in sales, you cannot control. Whether it will bring about no change in sales, you cannot control. Whether the outcome or the consequences of your decisions or is to result in what? Decrease in sales. N3. Now we have seen the second one. Why the third key items we need are what? Our payoffs. Payoffs are what? Outcome of the combination of decision alternative and state of nature. Combination of what you can control and what you cannot control. Let us read further. The marketing department of the company worked out the payoffs in terms of yearly net profits for each of the strategies. What are the strategies? You can see them up here. X1, X2, and X3. These are the strategies. So they have brought out what the payoffs in terms of yearly net profit. Now, what are we to do? So the payoff table is represented in the table below. Look at the payoff table, the profits, yearly profit. Look at your strategies. 1, X1, X2, X3. And look at the state of nature in 3 columns. Now, if you adopt strategy X1, if you combine it with state of nature N1, this is the yearly profit. If you combine strategy X1 with state of nature N3, you get 150,000 naira. Likewise, if you adopt strategy X2 in combination with state of nature N3, the yearly profit is 0. That is what this table is telling us. Now, this is the question. Which strategy should be consigned executive choose on the basis of Maximin criterion, Maximax criterion, Minimax regret criterion, Laplace criterion, then Hurwicz criterion? The consigned executive now. At this point, you want to make the decision and advise the concerned executive on the decision, on the best alternative to choose, on the best strategies to adopt using each of these criteria. Using A to E. How do we go about it? Now, we have decided to bring them out one after the other. Each criterion, to explain how we go about it. Please note this. To make decision, you use your strategies. These are your decision alternatives. Your strategies, your acts, your action to make decision. You don't use your states of nature because they are not under your control. Decision alternatives are under what? Your control. These are the things you use to make decision. Now, the criteria we are considering first is Maximin criterion. That means maximum of the minimum. Our advice is this. First, get out the minimum. Get the minimum values first. That is why the arrow is indicating backward. After getting the minimum values, then get the maximum value of all these minimum. Remember, going by strategy. Our strategies are facing what? Row X1, row X2, row X3, going this way. We need to first get what? The minimum.